This next nematode group that I would like to discuss is referred to as the Reniform nematode. It is again a sedentary parasite and also a semi-endo sedentary parasite. This micrograph shows a cotton root with two mature females of the Reniform nematode parasitizing the cotton root. There's no galling, but you notice this approximately kidney shape of these nematodes, hence the name Reniform. They're of moderate importance worldwide, highly important as a pest, particularly cotton in the Mid-South cotton production regions of the United States. This photograph illustrates a cotton field with damage due to these nematodes in Alabama. Symptoms are indiscrete. If you stain the roots, you can find the nematodes. They also, like root knot, produce gelatinous egg matrix that actually covers the female body at maturity and contains up to 50 or 60 eggs. And sometimes when you rinse the roots off from infected plants, the soil will adhere to these egg masses and you will get these little dark spots on the roots, which help diagnose the presence of the nematode. These are similar to the cyst nematodes in some ways in that they attack the pericycle and endodermal regions, and they also form syncytia due to the coalescence of adjacent cells and not giant cells like root knot. But there's a major difference between the other two, the root knot and cyst nematodes. In those two cases, the infective stage is a second stage juvenile that hatched from the eggs. With the Reniform nematode, eggs are produced, deposited in a gelatinous matrix, they hatch, and then without any evidence of feeding, they proceed from a second to a third to the fourth juvenile stage, and finally to what we call the immature female, which is kind of a mixed nomer. They are adult nematodes. It's the last stage of development, but they're still worm-like in shape. And then only the females will invade and establish a feeding site, but only as this final adult stage. None of the previous stages are capable of initiating infection. Once they start feeding, as with root knot and cyst, they begin to swell, in this case forming the kidney-like shape. The males then mate with the females and you get egg production. This shows an illustration of the feeding sites, and they can be quite elaborate with a large number of cells within the syncytia forming along the vascular tissue, again, near one of the poles of the phloem in the root tissue. Now, sort of the interesting thing is the comparison of root knot and Reniform, where for root knot, as I said, J2s are the infective stage, while for Reniform, it is the immature female. J2 develops through the J3, J4, and immature females without feeding. The infection court is the root apex for root knot, but it's the root cortex for Reniform. Root knot has giant cells, each giant cell developing by multiple cellular or nuclear divisions of a single cell that expands, whereas the multinucleate syncytia develops from pericycle and endodermis by the coalescence of those cells. Reproduction is predominantly asexual within root knot, where it is sexual cross-fertilization with the Reniform nematodes. An interesting comparison of these two is damage. 10 to 100 juveniles per pint of soil, 500 cubic centimeters, are sufficient to cause about a 10% yield loss of cotton. For Reniform, it takes 1,000 to 1,500 nematodes and 500 cubic centimeters of soil to cause similar yield loss. So these are much more aggressive in terms of nematode damage per nematode in the soil. Root knot are very much favored by sandy soils. Reniform are a bit unusual. They like silty soils, more finely textured soils. You will almost never find both of them together in a high population density in the same field. One will predominate over the other. Neither will survive freezing. The optimum temperature for root knot is generally around 28 degrees centigrade, whereas for reniform it's 30 to 32 degrees. So they're a bit more tropical in their adaptations. Even though root knot is more aggressive and causes more damage with the lower population densities, reniform has a higher reproductive potential. You can get populations of over 50,000 per 500 cubic centimeters of soil. No special adaptations for survival with root knot, whereas a reniform, as the soil dries, they will assume a very tightly coiled physical shape and dehydrate and survive in an hydrobiotic condition. They just dry down. If you dry them down slowly, they will survive desiccation. A few nematodes have this unique trait.